Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Wholala. I'm Sam.
And I'm Alasdair. I just took a big sip of tea before I said that, and I knew it was coming, and I still did it. And I'm Alasdair.
We're 97 episodes into this podcast, and you still can't get ready for your intro.
I'm Alasdair.
And we are doing our little three-part series in the finale of Series 9. And as with last week, we've got a very special guest.
We have got a very special little guest this week. It is Jenna Coleman of Doctor Who and Waterloo Road joining us this week. Say hello, Jenna.
Hi, I'm Jenna Coleman, and I don't know why I'm here. I hate Doctor Who, and no, she doesn't. She loves it, doesn't she? Doesn't she?
She loves.
She does.
I hope so. I just keep thinking of so I'm guessing you're a Doctor Who fan.
No, the right way to say it that Capaldi said is you're proud of the body of work you've done, and you don't see yourself returning soon.
What a smart man. And I'm not Jenna Coleman, unfortunately. Sorry for the Jenna stands here.
It is, in fact, even better than Jenna. It's Louis Le Gall.
Oh, stop it.
I am so excited to have you on, Louis. First of all, to talk about you and your work within Doctor Who world, but also, if there was ever an episode that you were going to be on, it was going to be this one, you know?
Yes, I didn't beg. You know when Donna's like saying, "Oh, he made me beg," and it's like, "Oh, please." No, but I remember we talked about it. I do love Heaven Sent. It's just.
But I think that's such a good sign that you love it so much that you were like, I need to discuss this one. This one I have to talk about.
I think Jess, my girlfriend's had enough of me talking about Heaven Sent. My mum's had enough, most probably when I go see her, and my dad doesn't understand what I'm talking about. So it's nice to talk about it with you guys.
This
with
is
friends.
The perfect place to watch it. But how are you, Louis? How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm very well. Today was a day that I released my video. Should I say that now?
You did, yeah. Talk about it.
Yeah, so I do YouTube videos. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to say that, but I'm another YouTuber. But I've been recapping the history of our wonderful show in a very funny way. I've already done the classic era, but very shortly done. And the modern era has gone a bit more deeper because I know more about it. And it's just very funny in the way that Bill Wirtz did the history of the world. If you know that video?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, a bit like that, a bit more funnier. And today, about an hour ago today, it was released. I had some lovely comments from people on there, so I was very proud of it.
Yeah.
And now I'm not going to do any more videos for another 2 weeks, and I'll work on Jodie's era and some more other stuff.
So
but yeah,
this one, because you've broken the videos down with the main Doctor Who videos you've done, like you said, you did 63 to 99. And then I really like how you've broken down the modern Who, because I watched with you, actually, your cut of 2005 to 2010.
Yeah.
And I think that's the right kind of place to split it, because this next one, it's 2010 to 2017, right?
it is. Yeah,
I feel like that's the right way to split these ones.
definitely. Because I did it by showrunner basically, because I think it's all very different in terms of like RTD1, then it's going from RTD to Moffat. It's so different. It has to be split. You can't. Yeah, going from Tennant to Matt is something a bit of a whiplash, I feel,
Literally.
in my opinion. So to separate it all, yeah, like I couldn't really separate Matt and Peter because I think Moffat does stay consistent throughout it. So yeah, no, but I'm very happy you like it. I do like making them. So yes.
They make me howl. That's how I came across you in the first place. Was I found your video before I knew you, and I was like, who do we tag? Who is this guy? And I don't know if I then said to Sam, I sent screen recordings because I was so like, it's one of those videos you really want someone to see because it's funny, but you only send like a link, and you're like, I don't know if they're actually gonna like bother to click this, so I'll send some screen recordings to convince them because that's so convenient. You can't not watch the funny bits.
Convincing.
Oh, but it's just, you know, like what was the bit I was laughing at? It was especially good because the chaotic history of Classic Who, because I wasn't so familiar with it. Certain pieces that I'd never seen before, like Sontarans running through by the swimming pool and falling over the sun loungers. Those kind of bits just had me scream.
Oh God, I remember because I think during lockdown, was it lockdown? No, just before it, they did a Twitch stream of all the Classic Who, and I just was absorbing so much Classic Who and seeing these scenes. I'm like, oh my God, this is just so funny. Yeah. How are those people that's taking this so seriously and so like venomously defending it? Like, have fun with this show.
This is the thing I have with it, and this is why, because I think, because like you said, obviously coming from the generation we are, we have a lot more of like first-hand experience with modern Who. So I really loved, because it's like, I think your Classic Who, it's like half an hour. It's so like fast paced through it, and it just obviously Classic Who is fun, but like I said, people tend to take it so seriously, and the perspective you came to it of like just like you take it seriously, and you obviously appreciate the source material, but you also don't take it seriously at all and just have a laugh with it, and that is like the exact like tone of humor that I love with Doctor Who, especially like Doctor Who fans.
Yeah, I think that's why a lot of my friends who are in the Doctor Who like world now, we just have fun with it. Because I have made friends who are quite serious about it, and then like it's like, oh, well, let's calm it down, a bit.
Literally.
So yeah, I just think, and also we're all friends because of this show, and I think taking it too seriously would just ruin the vibe. When I started doing my YouTube videos, I watched loads of Doctor Who YouTube channels, and I was just going through like, oh, I don't watch many. I think I don't watch any like review stuff because I kind of just like to make my own opinion. And then if the people who I talk about are interested in it, I will. Like, I think I better switch to podcasts like Wholala. And
Oh.
who are those other people? I don't know. Watch Who
Something
cast.
about watch. I don't know. There's
Oh,
Bert and Ernie or Doreen and
Bert and Ernie.
Doreen and
Bert and
Love Bert
Div.
and Ernie.
Becky or something. I don't know.
Yeah, lovely people. But yeah, no, I watch you. I listen to you guys, and I like to listen to. I think we've got the sort of same opinion. Maybe it's an echo chamber for me. Maybe I like that. But no, for YouTube, I was a bit like, you know what? I want to see this. Why don't I just make it? And I think you guys did that as well.
Well, we did exactly the same thing. We were like, I think actually our honest opinion was we were like, there are no podcasts about Doctor Who. No one's ever thought to do that before. No one has ever thought to have two men host a podcast before. And we're
Like
gonna
it.
do it. We're gonna be the first.
And we're gonna do it. Literally week 2 that we first published it. I was like, Sam, I've just looked because I think it's fair to say neither of us had listened to Doctor Who podcast before.
I'd like dabbled,
doing
but
Wholala.
I dabbled, but yeah.
Right. So, fine. And maybe like one or two. I didn't realize until like week 2 of Wholala, which is now like what, nearly how many years ago?
Nearly
Oh, wow.
2. We're having a 2-year anniversary next month.
Oh my god.
Oh my gosh.
Nearly
I
2
know.
years. And I was like, I've just done a look, and there's about 38.
Oh, honey, I
Other
saw a
Doctor
list
Who
of the
podcasts?
top 90 you should listen to. That wasn't all of them. That was
Yes.
the top 90.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
But you were still like, let's do it tonight.
I've had a really good idea.
We're going to talk about today. Obviously, I think the Moffat era is my era that I remember so much about. Because during RTD's era, I was moving around the place. For Moffat's era, I knew what I was doing, and I remember every episode so vividly. And I think it's the opposite for you, Sam. If I remember you saying,
It is a little bit the
2050
opposite of me.
no, it's interesting because I think lots of people who went to university just they couldn't really watch it. And I totally get that.
This is the thing that I
I
find.
did.
What about you, Alistair?
You did.
I watched it at
Alasdair
uni.
stuck through. Oh, no, I also I want it on record. I stuck through a lot of it at uni. I was going to say all of it. That's not true. No, this era that we're talking about today, I did watch the entire way through. But you're completely right that I think that like where I was at like in my life when like Capaldi was on and going into Jodie and stuff, I was just a bit here, there, all over the place. So I wasn't as sat as I was like going from like obviously 2005 into like maybe series
I'm sat.
7. I'm sat. Slow motion jump down. I'm sat. And then it's funny with the sort of revival that they've kind of tried to push into the show since Russell's come back. It's made me like, especially with Wholala, it's made me go back and like I kind of was like, oh, I remember like either not loving that episode, I remember thinking that whatever, and then watching it, and especially fine with Capaldi's era that there was such a plan overall that like I always say this, and I think I've said it on the pod, that you can take any sort of like 9 and 10 episode and watch it on its own and really enjoy it. Same with 11 arguably, but with 12 and 13 their work is best enjoyed as a piece of like a body of work, as like a piece of that puzzle. And so going back, and especially with series 9, rewatching episodes of series 9, I'm like, oh, this is nice, like this is good.
And Alistair, did you stick up with the Doctor Who throughout series 9 as well when it was airing?
I did, and I think I was quite up and down with how much I liked it. I think there was definitely moments where I was like, not so sure. I think series 8, maybe I wasn't so convinced, and series 9, I was a lot warmer too. And I remember by this point really feeling like, I mean, this episode particularly, I remember feeling very proud of it at that time. I feel like being a Doctor Who fan, like especially when I hit kind of uni, having watched it since I was 10 and had talked about it in the playground, felt like it was becoming, just with growing up, I think, a bit of a battle to like defend it and convince everyone else that it was good. And so if anyone else did want to like be in the living room in our like uni house when it was on, I always wanted it to be a good one, because like, oh god, they're watching, oh no. And they weren't people who'd grown up with Doctor Who, so I was kind of like, oh god, it was a good one. And obviously that's a ridiculous way to approach Doctor Who, because all of it's ridiculous often. And so like, to a casual observer who is not trying to watch or get into Doctor Who, or just isn't interested, like there's a great chance that just probably it's not for them. And like the girls who get it. And but this episode particularly, I remember sitting and thinking, like, at the end of it, like, that was a scorcher. Like, that was really clever, and I felt really satisfied by it. There was something I'll get into, you know, when we hit kind of the final act, when kind of all the puzzle pieces fall into place and we get something of a reveal of this is what's going on, where I remember sitting and thinking, oh, and I turned to the guy I was watching it with and I was like, oh, and I explained, like, do you see now, like, da-da-da. And he was like, what? And I was like, do you see what's happening? He was like, no. And I was like, it's amazing, like, oh my god, this whole time, like, he's been in a time loop. And it was, anyway, I loved it. I just remember, like, my first reaction, I was stunned by this.
I wish I had a better reaction, because mine is completely different, because I watched it and I was extremely hungover. I was with my friend. It was my two friends. It was my friend Perry, who doesn't watch Doctor Who. My friend Max, who loves Doctor Who. We sat down, we watched it, and I started off and I was like, "Oh, this is scary. He's just talking to himself the whole time." And right there, my friend Max turns to me. It's not the climax, and he says, "This is what's going to happen." I said, "No, it's not." He said, "Well, you owe me a Nando's if that is true." I said, "Oh, get out of here." And
the stakes
he managed.
are higher than the Doctor's.
I know. And then, like, everything he said happened, and I was like, ah. That's lovely, isn't it? I think I still. He always mentions it now, because I haven't bought it for him out of spite, for him knowing the show that I love more than him. That he knew it, but I think a second time round, fully concentrated on it, was just, oh my god.
I found that rewatching it, I was like, I knew I ranked this one highly, but it's probably gone up higher now, and it's probably now somewhere in my top 10, top 5, I think.
I feel like I'm sat here and I'm like, nobody knows that I'm not a Heaven Sent
Nobody
fan.
knows I'm about to tell them this is mid.
No, I think it's good. I want to get into it. You know what? I'll get into it a bit. But talking about watching the show with friends is actually a really good little segue, because we received an email from a lovely listener called Ash, and this is what they had to say. Hey there, this isn't a confession or anything scandalous about Doctor Who, people, but I thought this would be a wholesome little story for the pod. So my 20th birthday is coming up soon, and I've literally had my whole life with New Who, so for the past year, I've been trying to get my best friend to watch it, because I know she will love it. We decided we weren't going to do presents for the birthdays this year, as we're both poor students. That's relatable. I feel you there. Instead of presents, she said that we can have a Doctor Who marathon day, and I was buzzing when she said this. At the time of sending the message, the day hasn't happened yet, but I am so excited and have created a set list of proper banger episodes. She did request Blink and Vincent and the Doctor, so what better way to watch the new show than being scared shitless and then crying? I know this isn't a scandalous story, but it's something nice and wholesome. Love the pod, from Ash, number 1 Wholala fan. Ash, thank you so much. Another one. Thank you so much.
No, that's really high. Oh, thank you, Ash. I hope you have a lovely birthday.
I wish that someone gifted me that.
I know, that's better than a gift. I really want to know, because they emailed us this over a week ago. I want to know if their birthday's happened yet. Ash, please email us, let us know. Have you had the viewing party? We'll revisit. We'll want part 2 of the story.
Can you imagine, like, it was really bad. Like, we had a fight.
No, she hated Blink.
She hated it. She didn't like it.
Oh, bless.
No, I'm sure it went well. Sounds like banger eps.
Yeah. Well, speaking of episodes, as you probably have gathered, dear listener, from what we've been talking about today, we are talking about Heaven Sent, the second part in the Face the Raven Heaven Sent Hellbent trilogy. It originally aired on the 28th of November 2015, written by Stephen Moffat and directed by Rachel Talalay. It has an overnight viewership of 6.19 million and a very healthy, potentially the healthiest it's ever had, IMDb score of 9.6 out of 10.
Oh my god. Ooh. I don't think we've ever read it that high.
I don't think we have.
How was Rose then?
Rose, let me get up the stats. Rose, IMDb.
Because in our guesses, while we pulled it up, I'm going to guess Rose is like 7.8.
Rose, IMDb, Doctor Who. It is a 7.5. 7.5.
I do not trust IMDb. I don't trust it. I don't trust it. Even
don't
though
trust
it's
it.
right for this one. I don't trust
Listen, you
it.
can get one right, but you can get one wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, for anyone who hasn't seen the episode in a while, we always say, please go on iPlayer. It's on there. You can watch it on there. If you're international, I've no clue where you can watch it. I'm so sorry. Google it. Find out for yourself. You've got to put some effort in sometimes. I can't give it all to you. But what we will give you is a little recap of the story.
The story begins immediately after the death of the Doctor's companion, Clara Oswald, having faced the Raven. The Doctor is transported to a mysterious castle where he assures his captor that he'll find them, and that if they had anything to do with Clara's death, they should be very afraid. He soon realizes that he's being pursued by a menacing creature known as the Veil, which slowly stalks him through a maze-like fortress. The Veil's presence forces the Doctor to confess his deepest secrets and fears, and when he does, the entire castle shifts around him, changing layout and design.
Being confronted by the Veil, the Doctor throws a stool out of a window and dives outside to a certain death. We cut to the inside of his TARDIS and realise the Doctor is still falling, but using the idea of a TARDIS as a space to work out his plan. He talks to Clara, who writes to him on a chalkboard, helping him realise what he has to do to survive. After landing the fall, he realises that the sea that he's in is full of skulls.
I love how you just said
I
Clara.
loved your subtle Clara there.
Yes!
I know!
You're like,
Clara.
talks to Clara. Clara!
You'll see it in the video. You'll see
So
it in my video. I
gentle.
do that so much.
So excited. So, right, okay. As he navigates the castle, the Doctor uncovers cryptic clues, including strange bloodstains, decaying skulls, clothes identical to his, and the word bird written into the sand on the floor. He can tell by the stars that he's 7,000 years in the future, but can also tell that he hasn't time travelled. He also realises that the Veil wants him to confess what he knows about the hybrid, but though he's teasing his knowledge of it, refuses to say. The Doctor finds the mysterious Door 12 and is met with a wall made of asbantium, a material 4 times stronger than diamond. He realises what he has to do and starts punching the wall before being killed by the Veil.
Time Lords take a long time to die, just long enough for the Doctor to crawl back into the teleportation room. He realises that he's caught in a time loop, and that he can revive his younger self from the teleporter exactly as he was when he arrived, just before he dies. This continues the cycle, lasting billions of years, with the Doctor breaking down the wall bit by bit after each death, sacrificing himself over and over again.
The Doctor eventually breaks free by quoting a fable about a bird slowly wearing away a mountain, a symbol of his perseverance. After escaping, he finds himself on Gallifrey, and it's revealed that he has been trapped in his own confession dial by the Time Lords. He tells a boy to find someone important, and that the hybrid is him.
Dun dun dun.
That
Wow.
It's so dramatic.
It's the
Oh.
drama, Mick. I just love it.
I just love it.
Absolutely love it.
Well, before we dive into our own thoughts, we did reach out to you all on our X account, and you gave us some hot takes, and here's what some of you had to say.
The first tweet we have is from Evan Jones. So at Evan_257. Hello, dearest Evan. So he says that it's outstanding. Love how the episode acts as a distilled metaphor for the entire show. Every lap around the castle is its own episode, with corridors to run around, traps to escape, and a monster always chasing. Every confession is a plot revelation. Every death is a regeneration.
That is
my-
a scorcher of a tweet.
My jaw dropped when I read this. Like, consistently we get these like really good takes. We're just like, oh, what do you think of this episode that you haven't seen for 10 years? And people come back with like, oh, I just think that this was a metaphor for this, and this was really clever, and this was a genius exploration of this complex theme. And it's like, how did you just think of that? But this, I've never read this take before about it being a metaphor for the whole show. I don't know if that was like a well-known thing, or if this is Evan's unique take, but I just thought like, oh my God, I've never seen it in that way before.
I watched the episode because I haven't seen, we'll talk about it, but I haven't watched this episode in years, and I watched it after seeing Evan's tweet, because I tweeted being like, oh, we're going to watch this, what do you think? And then there's that line where he says like, I keep burning myself over and over, how many times can I do it, Clara? And I was like, oh my God, it's regeneration.
When he talks about all the different numbered rooms, and obviously he's looking for 12, but he's like all these different numbers and they're all jumbled up. And I think that's quite nice as well, like a way of him having this slightly jumbled up history, and sometimes it shifts around, sometimes it's in different places. I was like, oh.
And also, yeah, yes, I didn't even think about that. And also the amount of parallels to his final episode, things he says, he would say it again. And I was just like, oh my God, like the way he says it in the Doctor, he says it in Twice Upon a Time, like, how can I keep on doing this? Just keep on going. Oh my God. Wow. What a
Parallels.
tweet. Best tweet of the year.
What a
Beautiful.
tweet.
Tweet of the year. Well done.
Sorry, rest of the tweeters. Sorry, guys.
Casey says, I don't have a single piece of criticism for this episode. When it came out, I didn't appreciate it because I was younger, but while rewatching, I realised the genius of this episode. It showcases Capaldi's acting and Moffat's writing, and they work so well together.
True. I actually only have one criticism of this entire episode, and it's the CGI teleportation effect, like the glow on the screen.
I don't mind it.
That's the only thing. The only thing I don't like.
That's like scraping the barrel.
I like it because it really reminds me of that Sontaran teleport that Martha does when it's like
it's
that
very
kind of
that.
thing.
And it also I wanted a sinister version of This Is Gallifrey when they reveal the Citadel.
Oh, that would have been good.
But that, I think, is the only way they could have maybe pushed that IMDb 9.6 to 9.7.
There you go. I think you're right. You're absolutely right.
Ivy said, well, it had to happen at some point. Let's watch this episode. Interested to hear what you guys have to say about probably the most analysed Doctor Who episode of all time. We probably have very little original to say today, but the way we say it is going to be so gorgeous and new and
It is.
entertaining. I'll read one more. Peter said, it's not bad. That's at Dalecium. I don't think Peter often responds to us on here, but Peter does fantastic Doctor Who music, by the way. Talking about content creators we love. And the music you hear at the start of this episode is Dr. Disco by Peter.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. You know what I said about the best tweet before? No, I'm sorry, Evan. This beats it, actually.
There you go.
It's not bad.
It sums it up. It's
easy.
Well, you sent us lots of lovely tweets, and I'd love to read them all, but unfortunately, we've got 3 people on pod this week. We're going to have to start talking about our own thoughts.
Oh,
golly gosh.
Shall I just share a summarising thought of how I feel about this episode?
Mm-hmm.
I just felt it was so gripping, so beautiful. I love the theme of, I think, getting through grief is my favourite part of this and how it explores that. I love that it shows how the Doctor thinks, how stubborn this Doctor is, how lost in his own grief he is, what he's afraid of. Just a very well done, very experimental, character-driven, interesting piece. And I've said before, but I just feel like Stephen Moffat really understands the character and the show like nobody else does. And I just think he's really flexing that here and showing it off. And I love it.
Beautiful.
Definitely. Yeah.
Put.
And I think we've got to give credit where it's due to Rachel, the director, because the transitions, the opening, it's just like when I was expecting her to come out for the 60th, I think I expected a bit more, but she still got that touch. Like, I'm not a massive fan of like the 60th, but her direction is just, and this just shows off like this is one of the directors of Doctor Who that will go down in history because, my God, I think even she knows how much, I think she tweeted about it, how much she did love doing this, and gorgeous.
No, I know. When I think of Doctor Who directors, I think of people like Eurus Lynn and I think of Rachel Talalay. Like those are like the main 2 people that like spring to my mind when I think of directors for Doctor Who.
Yeah.
I love how much Rachel wanted to come back to it as well for the 60th. I think she said that when she was interviewing for it,
so cute.
I think she was recovering from cancer, but she didn't tell them how ill she'd been because she just didn't want anything to get in the way of, she was so certain like I can do this and I can do it so well that she was like, I will be well enough to do this, and they just don't need to know that. I'm paraphrasing heavily, but she was just so keen to get back to Doctor Who basically and just get a go with the script, which I just think is lovely, and I agree. I think she's very talented.
What's your, if you had to summarize your thoughts on this episode, Lou, how would you summarize it in a brief chunk?
Mesmerized and just on the edge each time. I think throughout it, I was just constantly questioning myself, like, what's he doing here? What's going on? What's this? And it's just, and you just sort of just struck by Peter's performance as well, because after losing Clara, he's still witty. He's still trying to show off to her, even though she's not there. There's moments like, there's a really funny bit when he's going down the corridor. He's like, I run out of corridors, story of my life, sort of thing. Sums up my life. And there's a bit like when he opens the door and he's like, see Clara? And he's like, oh, fuck. And you just feel all these emotions that he's doing. I just think it's just beautiful. That's how I summarize it. A really beautiful Doctor episode, written, directed, acted. And it's something that I constantly think about a lot. Like when I rewatch the scenes, I think it's one episode that when I rewatched it again, I was like, I'm not tired of this. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not ever tired of Doctor Who, but I think there's some episodes where I rewatch it in close
proximity to each other, I guess.
Yeah. I just think, I won't watch that again soon. But having said, I'm like, I need to to re-see that. Oh, like, yeah,
I love
that's my
that.
summary.
I
Yeah.
love it's one of your rewatchy ones. I don't disagree with anything anyone said. I no, I think this
carefully.
episode is completely and utterly gorgeous. I completely agree with everything you're saying about Rachel's direction. I love the shot where like the soup dripping down. I like the narrative. I love the narrative he has with Clara in his head, where there's the line he says where he's asking Clara what to do. He's like, well, what would you do? And she says the same thing as you. And he's like, yeah, of course. Well, I guess that's what killed you in the end. And like that kind of like cuts deep, especially straight off the back of Face the Raven. I think my thing with this episode is it's nothing wrong with what's in the context of the episode. It's that one of my favorite things about Doctor Who is the silly and the fun. And this episode is choosing to. It's a very active choice. It's not like, oh, they missed out on this. It's choosing to do something completely different. This is not. It makes me think of Blink in that it's unlike anything Doctor Who's done before. And I love that, and I love them doing it. But then when I look at my list of top 10 favourite episodes, I think I would probably lean more towards the fun, silly, adventure episodes. So it's not that I think that this episode is a flawed episode. It's just that the stuff I love about the series isn't in this episode by choice. And so I'm not going to lie, when they did that list and they said, what's the best episode Doctor Who of all time? And everyone said it was Heaven Sent, I was confused. I was a little confused. But it is an amazing episode.
Yeah, I get that. I think for me, this really delivered on what like the dark Capaldi stories always had the potential to be, and I feel like up until now, nothing had really like scratched that itch for me. I think when he was announced, there was that sense we talked about before, of like, oh, he's going to be the dark and gritty Doctor who's going to bring the gravitas to the show at last, and it's going to be a serious show for.
He's an Oscar winner. That was awful.
Don't forget, the big tagline was "No frills, just 100% pure rebel Time Lord."
Oh
something like
yes,
that.
you're so right.
And it was that classic pose that put my hand up like that.
Yeah.
A lot of it, I think, like a lot of the introspective stuff. Am I a good man? I wasn't really very into that. That didn't really work for me. This hits a lot of dark places repeatedly in the story. Obviously dealing with grief and death and torture and, you know, what he has to go through for billions of years to utterly sacrifice himself for the chance to bring his friend back from death, is just very beautiful. But it just goes to places, you know, there's like the point where he, you know, opens the story narrating kind of like, you know, this whole monologue about kind of one day you'll stay in the same place for too long and you'll notice a second shadow and then you'll die. And the cogs start turning at the same time that he's narrating this story about how, like, from the moment you're born, that day is coming for you. And that tickles my death anxiety in like quite a nice way. When too late you rise to go, you will notice a second shadow next to yours. Your life will then be over. It's just like poetry. And I love that. But there's also just like, you know, when he does die and then he reveals like Time Lords die very slowly. And that's why we like to be amongst our own kind. They know not to burn the body too soon. I was like, bloody hell. And then he drags himself bleeding. And I feel like we also rarely get blood in Doctor Who, but he's all bloodied and battered and finally arrives in the teleport room. And then he kind of resigns himself, both dying inside the TARDIS in his mind and dying physically, to hook himself up to this machine, saying this piece about all you need for NG is something to burn, and then burns himself, becoming nothing but a skull to bring himself back again to live through it all over again for the billionth time. It was like, wow. But it wasn't just kind of like dark and horrible for the point of being dark and horrible, just a shock. It was because the story needed it to be that. And I don't know, I just thought it was very beautiful. I love it.
To segue what from you said, Alasdair, about the opening monologue, I never noticed a thing. I found this out 2 weeks ago. Is that when we open up, after the credits roll, after the whole theme tune starts, and he's saying, "Chop chop the doctor will see you now." You see just behind him on the wall is written the monologue he was saying at the beginning. It's written on the wall.
Really?
And it's interesting. I don't know if like maybe there's a deleted scene where we saw the writing, but yeah, it's something I noticed. I was just like, is it something we didn't see? Is it another version of that timeline where we could do never for a billion years? Maybe one version he walked out there and read it, and that's what we're hearing most probably. there's probably during the credit sequence when he walks out, he literally looks at it and reads it, and it's a really cool little Easter egg. I never noticed that whole monologue is written on the wall when he's saying, "Chop chop, the doctor will see you now."
I'd never noticed that before. That's so. I just feel like this episode is the kind of one that you can go back to so many times and find so many little things. Like it's a bit like when you're watching like a mystery movie and you get to the end and it's been revealed, but obviously the reveal is like 3/4 the way through. So then when they do that sort of montage where it's like it's 7,000 years, it's 9,000 years, it's 100,000 years, like you're like, oh, he did the thing with the stool because of that, and oh, they're this because of that, and you're like putting it together as the episode's still coming to a conclusion, and that's really fun as a viewer. I was watching it with Nick, my partner, who hadn't seen it before, and it was when he was saying like 7,000 years, 9,000 years, and it cut to like 1,000,000,000, and he just kind of was like, bloody hell. Like, he was like, how long are we going?
That's
Bloody
the thing I
hell.
think that makes it really special for me, is that you can kind of feel, they somehow make you feel that time. It doesn't feel like a throwaway thing. Like, I can't remember which of the ones it is. There's a New Year special where the 13th Doctor has been in prison for, I can't remember how many years. Like
Revolution.
Yeah, and she's been there for hundreds of years, but it felt totally throwaway. Just like, I've been here for 137 years. And it was like, but have you? I don't believe you have been. But on this one, I don't know, somehow I felt really convinced that he'd been there for like
How
4
is she
billion
keeping
years.
up her roots?
How is she looking at why were they always
Skincare
got, like,
routine. Drop the skincare routine, 13, because wow.
I think just because we saw him play out this, he's working out so slowly. And at that point, it's such a random point as well to drop us in. Like 7,000 years in. This isn't the first time, 7,000 years. And it's already, he's ancient, but it's still relatively early in that story. And just seeing him very slowly work things out, and how long do I have to get from A to B, and trying to compute things in his mind. And then kind of just watching it speed up and 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 up every time. And him just going through those billions of years. But we know now as well that every single time he enters that room, he remembers all of the years, and every time has to make the same decision and have the same conversation with an imagined Clara, and resolve every single time to like, yep, I'm going to kill myself again for the billionth time, and will kill myself another 3 billion times after that to get back to you. I just felt like, wow. I just like, something about that just like really resonates with me, because I just buy it. I think it's all about Capaldi's performance as well.
I think I saw a lot of fans say the exact same thing, how they resonated with him going over and over again, retrying and retrying. I think that's very beautifully put. I think that's another thing that makes me feel like this episode is just beautiful. We're finding something else that you really resonate with, how hard he's trying.
Yeah.
He's literally killing himself each time until he finally succeeds. And I think that's an amazing metaphor for people who really are going through it, sort of thing.
Yeah. I think the theme of, dealing with grief, but as well, like you're saying, people with depression or mental health struggles, something I think really resonated for me as well watching this in uni. There was a year that I was having like some of the most like severe anxiety of my life. And I think maybe that this episode just came at a time where, like, I mean, honestly, after this episode aired, I walked around everywhere listening to The Shepherd's Boy. And that was very strongly the feeling that I pulled from it, was that sense of just doing something over and over and over again until it gets better. And I think it's like I said, it's in the performance. I think the way that Capaldi brings grief across here, he's giving grief in the way that the way that he performs that feels really grounded. It feels really authentic. There's a moment where he says the line like, and you'll still be gone, or like, I can't bring you back, and he's in his mind TARDIS, and he kind of like crumbles a bit at that and puts his head in his hands, and something about like that little performance felt so nuanced, and he's just a little bit misty-eyed at that, and he looks like genuinely despondent. Like, he looks like someone who really is going through it, and I just bought it, and I was just like, damn, like, you're an actor.
And I feel like a scene like that, compared to almost like the flippant way he talks about Clara's death, when he's saying the day you lose someone isn't the worst day, at least you have something to do. It's every day they stay dead afterwards that's the worst. And I was like, it's just going to hit me.
That was one of my notes, that I just love that quote. I love it because it's giving It's giving when Vision says, isn't love no lost. What does Vision say?
Beef isn't beef until it's.
Stop it. Yes, yes. The Doctor says that, I believe. The Doctor and Vision both say beef isn't beef. Grief it's not, isn't it just love persevering? Shut up, I can't.
What is beef if not cow persevering? That's not what he said.
That's not what he says famously in and it's not an Emmy Award-winning series, One Division. But no, yeah. A funny thing in my notes saying, were the Time Lords just watching this like some sort of freaks? Like, what's going on, guys? They're just, I don't know how they were seeing it.
I want to know, because like the way that at least I read the episode, I don't know if it's the intended way, is that like the Time Lords are watching this in real time. Like he says he goes to Gallifrey the long way round. Like he lives through 4 billion years and then ends up in Gallifrey 4 billion years later. But it's the same motley crew from like Day of the Doctor. So were there just like generations of different Time Lords like watching this throughout their history until we got to this group and they're like, oh, finally he got out. Like he could have got out anytime he wanted. Like, or was it just them the whole time being like, he's at it again?
I'm 100% sure that they were watching him on like 1.5 times, not even 1.5 speed. They were like watching it obscenely sped up. And at a certain point, I think when he fell into a certain rhythm, it was like playing Sims. It was just like, look.
When you fast forward the Sims.
Exactly. It's just like, look, they're fine for a minute. You just fast forward when they're sleeping. When he was into a particular rhythm, they were like, there's nothing new happening. Just skip a billion. Skip
Louis,
another billion.
Is Extremis the first of the Monk trilogy? Is that the first one?
Yes, actually, yes. It goes
I feel
Extremis,
like
Pyramid.
if you took Extremis and you mixed it with Heaven Sent, you have got the Sims movie.
Margot Robbie, get on this right now.
Margot Robbie, get on this now!
She's listening and making notes. I know it.
She's like,
yeah.
Oh no.
Oh no, my concept.
My concept.
Holding her new baby.
I had a quick note. It just says, Clara is clearly not Clara, but then I forgot she was in this.
Yeah.
She is in this. Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I wrote, was it really Jenna from the back?
Yeah,
Like,
That was not Jenna. That was a woman in a wig. And that's why I was so shocked, because I don't know why. I feel like Jenna Coleman has quite recognizable hands. And when she put her hand on the Doctor's face, I was like, but that is Jenna. And then it cut to her and I was like, that is Jenna. But I could say with some I don't know for a fact, but I would say with some certainty that like if they don't have to show Jenna Coleman's face, they were getting in someone that was a lot cheaper.
Yeah, I think whenever they can get in a body or a hand double, they do. But then I was thinking, she was on set. Would it have been that hard to just be like, stand there for a minute? Cheers.
Just write some stuff.
Love.
It did feel like, I have no idea what Clara's handwriting is. She's probably written on the blackboard in the school at some point, but the handwriting seemed very Clara to me.
Yeah, because it's the same in the next episode, obviously, as well, when she writes on the chalkboard. So yeah, no, I think or maybe this maybe Clara never writes. The opposite of Leia Michelle, she doesn't write. I can't write. Yeah. She just passes it to Jonathan Groff. No, the thing I wrote was good soup when he's drinking soup. Good soup. No, another bit, I think, because we're coming towards the end of the episode, really, is the bit when he realizes as well, the zoom. Is it a dolly?
It might be, yeah.
Oh my god, I'm so glad you said that. I have a thing. Oh, sorry, you go, but oh.
Yeah, no, you're right, because, oh, man, when it happens, it's just, yeah, no, I have a thing about those zooms. I'm so happy Doctor Who finally sort of did it so well, like, and it just pieces face, and yeah, and I think the best part about it is when he does that, when he does that first punch, I feel the pain each time he does it. You can hear,
literally.
I don't know who's in that sound effect booth, but you're like, oh, the crack. You're like, oh god.
You're like, oh yeah. It really does look like it hurts.
Yeah. So just everything about that.
I just kept thinking, like, could you not have kicked the wall with your shoe? Could you
He's
have
got to put
wrapped...
it in one. Do you know what I find funny is that the way he's doing it, there's the analogy of the bird like sharpening its beak on the diamonds, and it's like, I think of it like water eroding stone, like slowly doing it over and over and over. But he's like, if I was the Doctor and I was punching through this really hard rock, it's in like a perfect door shape. Like he's clearly like, I think I'd probably just try and like get a hole, because once he makes a hole, the whole thing kind of just shatters. But he quite carefully makes, a door. I'm just imagining him like
It's
in all
quite
these
square.
billions of years, chiseling away. I wonder if there's some versions of this where, because I'm sure in like the different time loops he does things ever so slightly different sometimes. Like where there's some where he just like like both hands at once manically, like blood, like pushing the way, and he's just there like
Screaming the shepherd's boy. I'm the shepherd. It's sad.
Exactly. I'm sure also there was one or two where he was just like kicking the diamond, throwing his whole body. I'd bring some skulls if I was me. I would bring some skulls.
The thing he should have brought, by the way, is the shovel. Can you imagine how much quicker this would have been if he brought the shovel? But
Well.
oh, go on.
Sorry to interrupt this. I believe puts the nerdy glasses. Actually, I think Stephen Moffat answered this because someone said, why didn't you use a shovel? And Stephen said, it's harder than diamond. You'll get that shovel and it will break into a million pieces.
Fair enough.
That is a very good point. The Doctor's just got really strong knuckles.
Yeah, he's got Time Lord knuckles, and it's just
Time Lord Knuckles.
But apparently, I don't know where that's written. Someone can quote me on that, but I feel like I read it in a Doctor Who magazine or an interview that he did.
No, you probably did, because I was going to segue into some of his other explanations that he gave in Doctor Who magazine.
Oh,
I know.
Which issue? Because it's only next to me right now.
I would love to have written that down, but guess what? I didn't. So, one of the complaints was the wall. Some people said, like, how come there's this wall that isn't resetting? And the answer is that Asbantium is an expression of the outer dial wall. So it's not a part of the castle, it's a part of the dial. And at that point, kind of, it is him literally breaking out of his conversion dial through the edges. So he said, this is the wall between his recycling puzzle box and freedom. They made it tougher than any living thing could ever get through, except, of course, the Doctor.
I tend to get frustrated when something happens in Doctor Who and they're like, oh yeah, no, that was explained. It was explained in issue blah, 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 of Doctor Who magazine or this interview on this DVD. But something like that where you're not ever going to in the episode have him turn to the camera and be like, well, if you're wondering about the shovel, like that, I don't mind that kind of thing. I feel like it's like lore expanding rather than putting the explanation in the episode.
Yeah. Speaking of as well, like things in the episode, him turning to camera, there is a nice fourth wall, tiny mini Winnie. There's a nice teeny weeny fourth wall break in this one. And he goes, oh, and who am I without an audience? I love that
my
bit.
My favourite one.
And then memory was another one. So if it's a new Doctor every time with a new brain being reset from zero, how can he possibly remember? And Moffat gave like a very Moffat-y long answer to this point about like, what is memory really? And, like memory, actually it was quite an RTD answer. What is memory? Like, memory is changed and forgotten, and memory is unreliable, and memory is a feeling. And anyway, so he does that bit. He said something about how basically when the Doctor realizes he's been repeating the cycle for billions of years, the weight of the time feels real to him, creating a memory that shouldn't exist. So does the Doctor have 4.5 billion years of literal memories? In a way, yes. In another way, no. They're more kind of compressed memories of a very repetitive process and the weight of the time he has spent there.
Oh.
Not so much, I think, literally remembering his first visit. Also, I don't think it matters.
We're already 7,000 years in by the time we get there as the audience, because he says, oh, the stars have moved 7,000 years. Like, and the first time he entered, it's like, oh, it's been 24 hours, or...
Yeah.
I don't know, is that... Yeah.
Do you know what would have been really interesting in this episode is if he had looked at the stars on the first night and been like, that's weird. That like, and like made like a little comment under breath or something about like 100 years, like da, 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 da. And then later like say it, he quite clearly says 7,000 years, and to see whether we as the audience would have caught that. Because what would have been really interesting is while we're watching this cycle of him from teleport to dying at the teleport, if we as the audience hadn't realised he'd already died throughout it, and we're watching several different Doctors rather than one. I guess you could read it that way if you wanted to. But
God,
yeah,
that would
be
complex, wouldn't it?
It's a
if you were
complex
watching
episode.
Multiple versions of the time loop in one story, that'd be hard. The clothes was another one. They were like, how are the clothes there? And he kind of answered this point as well that we were just saying about what happened on the first visit. And Moffat was saying that he feels that probably on the first few visits, the first few 100 years, the Doctor was probably turning up and exploring the castle probably at a different pace as well. Some of the details were probably different. He felt that the first time the clothes would have been provided by the castle. The Doctor probably wasn't running around naked. And eventually the Doctor decided to leave a pair of his own clothes behind at some point. And those wouldn't have resembled his own clothes. They'd just be, basic clothes in his size or something like that. In the same way that the castle provides soup, provides a bed, etc. And then the other thing that he explained, he said he feels that there's writing in some parts as well, like written all over the castle, like I'm in 12. And he was saying that was probably also left by the Doctor at some point. So he said after a few thousand years of this, he realizes he's going too slowly. He needs to get to the next version of himself in room 12 faster. One ancient version of the Doctor doesn't punch the wall. He tosses back out of the chamber before the veiled creature can arrive and scratches the word I am in 12 in every nook and cranny he can find. He chooses that message because it sounds like a cry for help, and that always appeals to him. The next Doctor might even be fooled into thinking it's Clara. Oh, the cruelty of the Doctor to himself.
Bastard.
Really?
Bastard.
Ooh.
I never thought about that. That's interesting. It's one of the things in a Moffat episode where I'm a bit like willing to overlook it. I'm like, why was that writing in the thing? And then like, I don't really think about it. But that is interesting.
Yeah.
And there's one thing we haven't touched upon yet, and I think you know what it is.
What?
The soundtrack, obviously.
The Shepherd's Boy, baby. If I may jump in, I feel like the soundtrack all the way through this, it's got a beautiful, like, slow plod. It's like, and it's very like, it's just like, it's plodding along almost like the veil is plodding towards him all the way through it. And then finally...
Oh my goodness. For our audio listeners, Louis is currently holding up the veil to the camera.
Oh, I've got my camera. I couldn't even say. I just said,
Oh, God, sorry.
Alistair was like, Sam, shut the fuck up.
Or describes me like I'm a listener.
Okay, so we're going to... Wait, no, Louis, you do it.
Oh, it's the figurine collection, and it's just a veil with its hands out, about to touch Peter's face.
Oh, that's
You know?
nice. At
It's
night, you can like, have it
gorgeous.
stroke your face.
I can almost
Little good
hear the...
And
almost hear the flies. Oh,
So I just
there's that
swear-
horrible line as well where he's like, there was a woman in the village who died and they put her in a veil, but it was a hot day and you could hear the flies and it gave me nightmares. Oh, that's horrible. Sorry,
love
go
it.
back to the soundtrack though.
See, doesn't that work better, by the way? I'm sorry to say. This, like, I couldn't help but think of with the veil as well. We're off on a tangent now, but that's okay. We're going to come back. Of, when he meets the bogeyman, he was like, why was I scared? Why did I run? Like, I love new things. Which was in itself a little bit annoying. I was like, there's a lot of times you've been scared, actually, but we'll ignore that. And he was like, oh, the bogeyman is meant to be scary. It screams at exactly the right resonance to be scary. And I was like, that bogeyman doesn't have shit on the veil. I'll say that now.
Yeah.
The veil is scary because it reminds you of an old lady who was rotting in the street. That is so much better to me than the snot monster at the right frequency.
And sorry to change the bit on another tangent. It's when at the Doctor Who proms when you see the snot monster. I was quite close to him. I was just like, oh fella, just like hang on to the rail. I was like,
know.
I think I
Oh,
gave you a little
I
wave
haven't-
at some point in the top corner, and I did think about you when they had like the woman from 73 Yards and the the boogeyman, and that's because they also have a screen right next to him where you see him like flying about to fall into space, all the snot, and this guy's just like holding onto the handrails, like. "Ah,
Just wiggling a little bit from side to side. Just,
Literally.
He kind of just looked drunk.
yeah. Also, 73 yards, but it didn't work for me because I was like 20 or 12 yards.
Too close.
Too close.
We were
Anyway.
just the right. We were like, I can't see her face. It's terrifying. And I can imagine you being like, oh, Sam, hello, darling. You all right?"
Oh, it's you!
Oh,
Yeah.
what a good gig for you.
Oh,
Yeah.
so proud of you, love.
Soundtracks.
Shepherd's Boy. Shepherd's Boy.
Soundtrack.
They didn't play the Shepherd's Boy at the proms, which is the one thing I would have loved to hear, but I got 15, so it's fine.
That's
Yeah,
true.
beautiful climax. It kicks in right when the Doctor realizes he can only win by brute forcing his way out and dying endlessly for who knows how long. Heartbreaking to see him break down and ask why he can't just give into his grief, why he can't just give up. I love that whiplash you get between the excitement of, I'm going to fix this, I'm going to win, and then, can I not just die? And like, sincerely,
Yeah.
can't I just die? And then when he commits himself to this, it's like, here we go. And it's something for me so moving about that moment of commitment to, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to do it. And because he makes that one decision once at some point in his history, he does it again every time for billions of years because he decided that one time. And so he decides every time to do it, despite how like hopeless everything seems, not to give in to the grief. And he imagines Clara telling him not to give in and all this as well. But anyway, the sound, I mean, how could you even write soundtrack to accompany that? I don't know. But what he came up with is just so beautiful and so like circular in itself, like building and adding layers every time, growing. And somehow it sounds so hopeful as well through all of that montage. And just the sound of it as well. Like, I listened after it came out just to the version of it that was like, you know, the YouTube extraction version that still had the shattering window in the background. So I was like listening, I could still hear in the background like, and I was listening to that as I walked around. And it just captures the feeling for me very much about, you know, getting over something insurmountable, bracing yourself through it, just dealing with it, enduring it a little bit at a time, pushing through. And it feels good. It just hypes me up and I love it.
You've heard The Shepherd's Boy before. We all have.
Oh, yes, we have.
We've heard it in The Day of the Doctor.
Yes, we have.
As soon as the Doctor literally says, I've changed my mind, you slowly hear the guitar, the
Yes,
it
we
slowly
have.
creeps in, but it mixes with Majestic Tale of a Madman.
Yeah.
But I'm happy he just grabbed that and thought, you know what, I'm going to go so ham on that. I'm going to take it and I'm going to make this the theme tune for the Doctor. But as I was saying about soundtrack as well, The Shepherd's Boy is beautiful, but there's another part I wrote down was the start of the episode. I think on the Series 9 soundtrack is a separate disc for all of it. And my favorite one, I believe, is it I don't know what it's got an accordion. And I never hear accordions in the Doctor Who soundtrack. And it's the one when he's looking at the stars. And that's another favorite one. And the build up to the Shepherd's Boy. They've got, but yeah, listen, it's just really beautiful. Everything that builds up to it. As you said, it's like plodding along. I never heard that one before, but I love the way you put that.
Yeah.
It's just great.
It's so good. I feel like this episode's a really great example, and I'm so glad you said that bit about the Day of the Doctor, because I've never put two and two together, where Murray Gold's music often gets called, like, especially in the earlier days of, you know, series 1, 2, 3, like bombastic and loud and a bit in your face. And what I really love about his style as his work developed throughout Doctor Who is, like you said, he takes different motifs and different small pieces from tracks and melds them together and mix them together. And like you said about the Shepherd's Boy, it had featured another episode, and then he chose to take that and build upon that. And so then when you retroactively go back and look at this episode from years before, you hear the same motif, you feel the same feeling, you've got the same vibe, and it's a really strong balance of having the music not be the focus. You're not meant to be paying attention to it. It's meant to just be feeding into how you feel about what's happening on screen, while also being able to be like, I bloody love the accordion that they play there. I love the Shepherd's Boy. I love this. And I do think it's inarguable that the Shepherd's Boy is one of the best pieces of music to come out of Doctor Who. Certainly to come out of this episode. It was such a strong asset to this episode. And I just feel like we're so lucky to have an episode with such incredible direction, such great writing, such amazing performance from Capaldi, such great score, such great monster concept. It really is just like great thing on top of great thing on top of great thing on top of great thing.
Exactly.
Just fucking works. Just
It
works.
just works. When we get out of the confession down, when he finally gets out, he blows that, he puts that little final line in, the personally, I think that's a hell of a bird. I remember just watching that, just being like, oh my gosh, he's out. He's finally out. And then I think we all knew he was going to be on Gallifrey. But that little reveal with the confession dial, it suddenly clicks because he says, oh, it just wants confessions. And you don't even, when I heard it for the first time, I was like, oh my God, they said it's the confession dial already. He's ready to, he knows, I think he sort of knows it. And he comes out of it, and then I don't know where that kid was going, but I guess he was lucky he caught him, because if I was that kid, I would not be able to relay that information to anyone.
He said,
Mum,
I'm back, and
He said, find somebody boy.
Mum, this
Mummy,
weird,
is somebody
this weird
boy.
old man was in the middle of the desert and he told me to find someone. Can't remember. Is that wiping his nose? Can't remember why though. He said
way around.
something about.
Where's my fruit shoot?
Summon. Oh, it's gone. Sorry.
I didn't realize until this watch that the citadel of Gallifrey is reflected in his sunglasses at the end, and quite realistically too. Generally, I found his sunnies a little bit corny throughout the series.
Oh, it's so
personally.
good.
I felt like wearable technology. It was a bit like,
I love it. It's so stupid. I love it.
but in this one, it works. It does work this time.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about it because I know we're getting towards the end of this episode and we're going to do a whole episode about it next week. But normally when we're watching a Hulu episode that's in multiple parts and we're breaking it into separate episodes, I will watch the episode. So like with Face Raven, I watched the episode, I finished it, and I was like, right, cool, that's what we're doing this week. I went straight into Hellbent after this, and I was like, I can't stop. I can't help myself. It did leave me with that taste in my mouth where I was like, I can't stop here. We're right in the middle of it.
I ended up doing the same thing, and then I ran out of time this evening. I was like, oh, I'm not going to do the episode now. But I'm very excited to get into next week's.
Oh, you know what? I might just watch it anyway now. I haven't watched enough Doctor, and I love Hellbent so much.
Well, after a bloody cork of that episode, I've got some fun facts for you. Now, this, I feel like it's been a fun-filled fact episode. We've all been throwing some in here and there, but I've collated a couple that we've not said in the episode yet. The skull that the Doctor finds. I also feel like I'm going to read these to you two, and you two will know all of these, but hopefully some of the listeners might not know these. So the skull that the Doctor finds is actually based on Peter Capaldi's bone structure. The effects team reverse engineered the shape of his skull based on a life cast that they did for the Doctor's prosthetics in Under the Lake Before the Flood. So actually I was watching this, and when it was revealed that it was all the Doctor, I sort of elbowed Nick and I was like, Nick, it's actually his skull. And he was like, what?
I did the same to Jess. I was like, hey, that's actually his skull. And she's like, oh, wow.
I didn't know that. That's new to me. There's so many memes about like people who like interrupt Lord of the Rings to give facts. We need to make some memes about interrupting this particular episode.
Oh my god, that was literally me the whole time. So another quick fact, the Doctor said that he arrived to Gallifrey the long way round, which is an homage to the 11th Doctor saying in The Day of the Doctor that he was going home the long way round, which he eventually did, but probably not the way that he thought he would.
Would the Time Lords get that reference, is what I thought as well. He's like, they'll know this one. And I was thinking, will they get that?
I can.
They'd be like, oh, that was his catchphrase. Like 10 and 11 said that sometimes. They'd be like,
I can't imagine that
"Yeah, we were in a
happening.
war."
Like, I can imagine, like, hopefully, maybe once upon a time.
This is actually quite an interesting fact. So the episode was mainly promoted by various news outlets as a one-hander, which means that obviously it's only got one actor throughout the whole episode. But because of the presence of the Imagined Claw in the Veil and the appearance of the young boy at the end of the episode, it technically isn't actually a one-hander. The only one-hander episode that has ever been in Doctor Who is Clara and the TARDIS, the minisode from 2013, where she just sees all these different versions of herself. And I find that so funny that in the bloody 60 years of history of this show, the Clara Oswald minisode is the only time we've actually had a one-hander.
Dear God, that woman is made of legs.
It's also giving, the rumor where Jenna Coleman was the only one who signed up for the Day of the Doctor, so he wrote a script that only Jenna would be in it. I bet that was it.
This is in the days before ChatGPT. Like, he actually had to like sit and give that like a good 3 hours of his time on like a Tuesday afternoon. Just like, right, okay.
Literally.
It's only her. What is she seeing? What is she saying?
She's in M&S buying an avocado.
She gets a phone call.
I've got one last fact, and it's not really a fun fact about this episode, but it's something that I just hadn't really put two and two together before. So this is the only penultimate episode of Stephen Moffat's tenure not to feature the Cybermen. And I thought about it, and I was like, no, that can't be true. But then I was like, okay, so the Pandora Crow opens. Yep, okay, you've got the Cyberman. Series 6, oh yeah, okay, you've got Craig and the Cyberman. Okay, cool. Series 7, oh, it's Nightmare and Sylvia, you've got the Cyberman. Series 8, oh yeah, no, of course, you've got Dark Water, the Cyberman. And then you got this one, no Cyberman. There is a Cyberman in the next one, though. And then you got, the Doctor Falls that. I was like, oh my god, a Cyberman! And I suddenly realised that in the penultimate episode of every single Stephen Moffat series, other than Series 9, there are Cybermen, but there is a Cyberman in the finale. I was like, oh my god.
He's obsessed.
Bloody obsessed. Obsessed is that.
Absolutely obsessed.
Well, Louis, I want to thank you very much from Alistair and me for joining us on the pod this week. You have been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. No, thank you. It's been a real pleasure to talk about Doctor Who.
I thought you were thanking me as well, and I was like, oh, thanks.
I don't
You need to
care if
thank
you're
him
not
every
not
week
me.
now. You need to thank Alistair every week. And Alistair, you need to thank Sam every week.
That's not going to happen, my darling.
Sorry.
No, I must thank you for letting me talk about Doctor Who. Because what else do I do in my... No, do other things. I do other things. Thank you for inviting me for the best episode ever. You don't need to bring me back on anymore, unless it's the Heaven Sent Part 2, but that doesn't exist. So, but it does help.
Just you watch.
But
It will.
I just love having someone very passionate on to just be like, I just bloody love this one. And it just be like, yeah, great.
you guys
It's
are
so
passionate.
good.
Stop. You always say all the other guests aren't passionate. Josh isn't passionate. I know he's not. He's passionate about Clara.
He's. If there's one thing he's passionate about, it's Clara Oswald.
As you should.
Well, thank you, Louis, for joining. Thank you, dear listener, for listening to another episode of Wholala. Next week, we are going to finish the 3-part trilogy with Hell Ben, and we are likely going to have a very special guest on there, which I just realised I haven't spoken to Alasdair about, so we're going to talk about that very soon.
I was going to say, are we? That's nice. You could actually leave it until the day, and I could just find out. I genuinely think that'd be quite funny. Just tell me when.
I love that. Do you know? Okay. Leave the cogs to me.
Alright.
Leave the cogs to me. Well,
How interesting.
thank you so much to listen for listening to this episode of Hula. If you enjoyed it, you can follow us or reach out to us on all of our social media, which is at HulaPod on X, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. You can email us your Doctor Who fan anecdotes on hulalapod@gmail.com and rewatch old episodes of the podcast on our YouTube channel, which is also at HulaPod.
Yes, and you can ignore Louis and rate us 5 stars wherever you're listening. Follow the pod. You can buy us a coffee, ko-fi/hulala, and share this pod with a friend if you enjoyed. And Louis, where can people find you?
Like and subscribe to Louis Le Gall. It's my name, Louis, then space LE space GALL. I'm on YouTube and I'm on X/Twitter. That's all you're allowed to follow me on. Anything else, if you find me, if you see me in public, leave me be.
Okay, Tom.
Don't touch.
And don't forget to subscribe to the official Louis Le Gall YouTube channel.
I would start doing that, but Josh Nares does it, so there we go.
Oh, you can't steal it from them.
No.
You can't steal it from them.
I can't steal it from them.
Oh, well, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next week.
See you next time.
Bye!